This is Chariot.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. The BBR Chariot TV every year akwaba midin edit Derek down. So Jumedi Bible Answers. And it's been a while since we met on Bible Answers, but we are finally back. Please, Bobia Manie say Munyang country for say Bible Answers Merenedua me pacho. Now we'll catch one say Bobia Manie say Mereno Ason. Yeba bedim komo. Send any dano. If you have any questions, the Bible has all the answers. That is what we are doing today. Bible Dispensation Explained. Yeba bedim hon komo say so. Yefa ye trust them no. Na say ye bisa nsem bi ti say yehu Old Testament, yehu New Testament. You dey no to nchen a yehu apam that the friend no say the Patriarchal Dispensation, you be friend Mosaical Dispensation, you Christian Dispensation. What exactly is that? Saying a Bible in church mu fa sa asem we say ho ete ne minim say ye program say twem no na bi mu bisa questions say ye preach about make comment say Patriarchal Dispensation no popularly near na ye nti asem mu no ye fa ne say epembra Mosaical Dispensation sha say na say Moses apen so no e sha ase na Patriarchal no ejaye but obo so say there bi enye sa enete mumu do na the questions by comment section say so saying na sa asem no ete Bible hin fa na che sa ye shebo say ye no beba ye bedi sa asem no ehun komo eno na emre no edu enti say why crowd a bani age say yasan so hia bio e Bible Answer dwumedie so esamba kanye ni di dwume no wo hu no screen so Mr. Jonathan Mensah Bonsu from Committee 8 and 9 Church of Christ why crowd say oni ye ebeche nyankopon asem preacher why you ready?
Yeah, am I ready?
Now,
but now say
loud and clear. Nyankopo adome ho ye pa. Akwaba. You share check.
Yes, you share check. Adwuma ne nyoma kakra bi twetwe kakra sa ba bend.
Finally, we are here. Safe and I will join the Bible Answers on Chariot TV. I best share their comments in the comment section. If you have questions, please send it in. Going forward, no questions never ban you be funny can no na yakoswa ehi ano. Okay, straight to the topic. Bible Dispensation Explained. Ubesha safe here now dia we dey yes or no answer say the entire nti.
First of all, no mama fa akonya isuna menda wase ene atwofo wase se dan den nyamu gibre na ohwe Chariot TV. Any easy data boy but essentially we spend time with our interest with truth. Now I'm saying in no ye jibre say ye be suande efi nyankopon asemu and it's encouraging say nipa jibre sa na the metwe ahwefo adwena so say you can subscribe our YouTube channel. Just go to Chariot TV on YouTube and subscribe. Now hit the notification bell no say the you go live, you can get access to the information. Yes, share no. Interesting on that regard. But my that maka I know if you know. My main kai I have fundamental to say. The phrase dispensation or dispensationalism. Say search it on Google and I say search it on any search engine on the internet. There's a high possibility that it will pop up an error. By error, I mean that premillennialist has a system of Mashisha. They say that there are 7 distinct dispensations in the world. 7 what we normally call in theology as dispensationalism no, is not what we know in the churches of Christ as dispensation. So that should be at the back of our mind so that
because this is contrary to what is popularly known within the churches of Christ. And the all can say you can dispensation said you ever become ye di home common in the mechanic say a wider scope no send ye yes ana man for who
No, not that. Not Sakra. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
how we look at it, if we say any member of the church, what's not to move for just a brief period of time, no, we'll be quick to say that there are 3 dispensations in the Bible.
Yes.
3 dispensations quickly. But in the denominational world and the world at large in theology, you know, that's not what they mean by dispensationalism. What they mean by dispensationalism is different from what we call in the sense of
Okay.
Christ. So that is my caution in the sense that you see, we are in the age of information where people like to search on Google, searching with AI and things like that.
Yeah.
In case of people who see BBC now about dispensationalism internet as well, it will pull out a list on things for you. Now and so but dispensational beliefs in they said there are 7 dispensational schemes in Canada. Their first thinking they say there's an innocent stage. That's what they call it. They have a period called the innocent stage. Bra Adam in the garden, that period of time. Then you see, so they divide Bible not based on system of religion. I mean, kind of for you to get it. You see, what we call dispensation has something to do with a system of religion or how an in the part deal. They are not deep. So what they call dispensationalism now is not in that regards. They look at dispensationalism as 7 epochs or 7 period of
Like
time.
periods.
Yes, like periods of time. One is that in the innocent stage, like before the fall. Then they came about what they call the conscience stage. I just want to read some of them to you. They have the conscience stage from the fall to the great flood. They have civil government. They have the patriarchal rule. They have the law. That is from Moses to the crucifixion time. They have grace, and they are waiting for the millennial reign or the millennial kingdom. So in a dispensational thinking of the denominations, we are in the grace period. So they await what they call the millennial period. So that is what dispensations in denominational
And
setting look like.
yes, just to comment on that, I think the first time, what you're saying is very true. The first time I met you, say Obi Kasas, and I was very surprised. So I say, yeah, well, dispensation of grace. And so we share carefully, almost all the theology from denominations no carries that same line of thinking.
Yes.
Say, your dispensation of grace, NCBS, our dispensation of grace, Nichempe, Yababe do, Sabra, Yesu Babe. Armageddon or the Armageddon and how the Chirabi, not the rapture Bishim. I was a bit surprised until later. I was like, oh, okay, Google so true. That's
Yeah,
what you see.
that's what
That's
you
what
see.
you
So
see.
it's a whole block of millennial theology, where either it's a premillennial theology or postmillennial theology of that sort of. So there's a whole block of that. Indeed, as your function is say, we all use internet. We all use Google, we all use Bing and all search engines, and we all use AI. But be careful on what you are reading on things like that. That's my point. So the fact that you have Googled and you see dispensationalism does not mean that it's teaching what we are going to talk about. What we are talking about is a system of religion. So in other words, we are trying to point out to men that God has dealt with mankind in 3 forms of religion, if you want it that way, or if you know 3 dispensations. That is what we are pointing to men, and that is where our study text come from. Just that the reason why we are studying this carefully is simply because of how we are being taught these things in our Bible classes for years, which has called for attention of us taking a keen look at it again. Now,
Yeah.
to really look at it, whether really that is the picture of what the Bible actually is saying. Traditionally, I want to sketch something to you from our board. I don't know whether how I will be. I'm
Sure.
coming just a few minutes. Traditionally,
All right.
we have had how if I said I want to share a screen so that I can sketch something for us to see. So traditionally, we have taught in Bible classes that see a dispensation, and I draw a line. BC. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, draw
Yeah,
a
we
line.
can see it. It's very clear.
Now, you draw a line. BC, yeah. Then we say that this is a patriarchal dispensation. The word patriarchal simply means that fathers. That's what it means.
But I'm loud and clear.
So patriarchal simply means father. So the P here near the Mosaic Abeshasi, near the Christian era Abesha. So tradition, this is how we have viewed uh, the history of
The
time from the
conversation.
time of
Yeah.
creation. So in your minds, there's creation in this point. Anna Nyankopon bad the creation. And from creation to Mount Sinai. Sinai before
Yes.
so the book of Exodus, chapter 19. Mount Sinai, when the Lord was giving
1920.
it. Then
Yes.
what happened was that from Mount Sinai to the cross of Jesus Christ. And so Jesus Christ Assembly so is where Mosaic dispensation ended or Mosaic economy ended. Then we
Yeah.
are in this era. We are in this era. The church is here in the time of year, and we are heading towards where there will be the end of time. You look here. So tradition, this is how we have viewed the history of time from the time of creation, from the Bible point. So we have three systems of religion or three dispensations, if you want them. The Patriarchal Dispensation, which Patriarchal, that's it, patriarchs. It comes from the word patriarchs, which means father. A janum tree, so a janum. A januma pencil. And a mosaica is coming from Moses, which means the Moses economy. A choir now Moses a pencil is here. And the Christian age or the Christianity is coming from Christian or Christ. It used to be other buyer and in that sort of. So that is how traditionally we have viewed it. But the problem that arises from this is that most cases we don't think about it. We just go around and try and tell that the catching conformity say, for instance, BBT say Titan or Shaha, right?
Yes.
BBT say Sabbath or Shaha. BBT
Yeah.
say winter music or Moaha. All these things are here. So they can't carry them here. We can depend
Yeah.
on and we try our best to explain all these things. Truly, that conclusion is right. It's right that Mosaic period, that was where the Titan was in operation. In the Mosaic period, when Sabbath was to preach now. In the Mosaic period, sacrifices and instrumental music and things are well preached now. But you cannot carry it to the Christian era. That is true. The issue that many Adrian and no and has to do with something with the Gentiles situation. I'm a man move
Yes.
for nowhere. So what we are bringing our attention to is that what we are teaching people ni say Nyankopɔn bɔ adeɛ wɔ creation ha sei no. Nyankopɔn bɔ ɔsoro ne asase no. There was only one reason. There were a lot of countries but none of them were special. So God was
Yes.
dealing with families during this time. I find
Yes.
the
They're
patriarchal.
friendly with Patriarchal.
Good. Until you remember that the descendants of Jacob showed up. So the descendants
Yes.
of Jacob are the Israelites. Descendants of Jacob are the Israelites. Roughly like about 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Those Israelites were not there. They were not Jacob, and certainly there was no descendant of Jacob. So when Jacob showed up and his descendants showed up, then Israel no Eshasi. So
Yes.
Israelite a nation that is founded from the descendants of Jacob, the 12
Yeah.
patriarchs, if you want them, of the 12 sons or the 12 tribal leaders of Jacob as if.
Yeah.
So that's where Israel is at picky. And you remember Israel also ekoye nkwa. You remember Joseph in Egypt. And
Yes.
recognize Joseph is in Egypt. They moved to Egypt and go and live there. Jacob died. Then the Israelites were under captivity. And it took Moses to take them from captivity, you on free
To the
captivity.
promised land.
Yes, or the more promised land. It was on Mount Sinai, and Yankopon Israel for a special in what sense? He gave them a special law. Or not Pam Emma Wom. And we read that clearly in the book of Deuteronomy. I don't want us to go there. We are familiar. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 5, clearly. Yankopon to say. And yet one janum and or them. So Yankopon made the Israelites special in a sense of he gave them a special law. On an intem, on a apam. So apamo na Moses so eba was a covenant between God and the Israelites.
Yes.
But the question that jumps our mind is what? And he said, what happened to the Gentiles at this time? What was their state? Clearly, in most classes or in our Bible classes, this has not been taught through.
Yes,
it doesn't show up in our Bible classes simply because possibly maybe it didn't cross our mind carefully about what the Nyankopon ever dealing with Amamemu. How was their state? Because we have seen that Amamemu in our minds, we have looked at Amamemu so we not mind. But the seriousness on that matter, they say, sometimes we look at it and think and perceive that God didn't care about them. So God didn't care about them. He just left them. You won't feel, and in that regards, didn't care about them. Like that is how we view it from our standpoint, and that is serious. It's serious on several counts. One is that God is not a respecter of person. Acts chapter 10, verse number 34. Peter has to learn that. Peter is but he used to think that I'm a member for Hunte. And the Jews, by and large, were looking at Gentiles as not as unclean. They are uncircumcised. So they look at them as unclean. So even when Peter was going to Cornelius' house, he was still struggling with it. That I'm a member for the but he said something interesting in Acts chapter 10, verse number 34. I just want you to read it. Acts 10,
verse 34.
Yes.
It says this. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, in truth, I perceive that God shows no partiality, but in every nation, whoever fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. That's verse 35.
So, yes, clearly, no. Peter, someone can say, hey, no criminal mehunu. Nyankopon hwini pani mu yiyim. God is not a respecter of persons, as the King James or old translations. God is not a respecter of persons, or does not show partiality. And Nyankopon wan hwe woni e make judgment on because of your face, how your face look like. So Nyankopon didn't care about the Gentile world that well, may Jew for no so many binyankwa, mama kana whether you do good or not, then that will have a serious issue with God's character. God's character, as we know it.
Yeah.
Because we know God not to be partial. He has to give room for everybody. Be a person of ban and chain. As Peter pointed out, that to be a ban and chain. So that is what came to our mind, and that is where we have to fix in. Where was the Gentiles, or how was God dealing with the Gentiles back then? Abraham Moses apenso som ifri Mount Sinai be poso ebaye na Israel for Nyankopon no pam no mo. How was God dealing with the Gentiles? Amamemu for no Nyankopon eja won sa ana. My answer, no. Answer is no. I don't believe that. And the Bible, I believe strongly that the Bible also don't teach that. The Bible in church, the Bible in church, and they said patriarchal dispensation was still in place even at the time of Let me show you how a better picture of the this thing should supposed to look like. So, young picture has it as the point of creation. So creation time.
Okay.
What happened is that from creation, Adam time Abraham this was what is happening. When Moses showed up on Mount Sinai, so this might be when Moses showed up, then it's branched in this way. So on Mount Sinai here, Mosaical economy, but for the Gentiles, by and large, it was patriarchy. So this line here,
they were giving no law.
They were not giving a special. They had laws. If they're not giving laws,
in that sense, like the Israelites were giving a new law, an additional law. No, they were not giving some.
Yes, they were giving special laws that made them special among other nations. they were giving ceremonial laws which were not things that were not
given to the rest of the.
You see, before Moses showed up, now we become unipa ebony. That was a law God has given to man, and it was men knew that say unipa kumuni ebony. They knew that unipa can try ebony, unipa biade ebony. They knew that, and Moses showed up on Yankopon at the ceremonial laws plus moral laws, Emma Moses, to make the what they call Israelites, special. And he gave them laws that were civic in nature. Civic means that yedibu on mine.
Like a constitution.
Yes, aman some mra say bia. Fan say unu nua bi asem unu nua bi nya dispute bia say we ni we nya asem a de enye also ki well ukun obi fan say uwie obi wa ponche ewia ewi obi aduane a yentwia we ni we manotwia we they are not moral in a sense. They are not ceremonial in a sense. They are civic in nature, in the sense that it's trying to discuss or deal with one man in relation to another in terms of how we relate in terms of government. He gave them those laws, making them special. But for the Gentile world, by and large, the Gentile world were still under patriarchy. So this line here is patriarchal. It goes like that. But this line here branches Mosaica.
Yeah.
So what we are saying is that when Jesus on the cross showed up, so cross here, on the cross here, when Jesus was here, where he was crucified, it was not just Mosaica period. Another baby. He ended the Patriarchal Dispensation for the Gentiles and ended the Mosaical Dispensation for the Jews. So what's the picture here? So there were two ages, if you want it, or two systems of religions that ended at the cross. And that is where I want us to dwell on. In the idea, Hannah, where we get that idea, there are two system of religions or two system of ages, and it happened end there at the cross. I think let's
before. I mean, this is revelatory in a sense. I hope that people get the context I'm using revelatory, they will not take it out of context. In that, for a lot of people, this might be the first time they are coming across something like this. I quite remember this explanation way back in Obuasi in Sunday school. One of you break into classes, and one of our old Bible teachers, I don't know if he's still alive or not. When he brought up this concept, I must admit, it brought a big dissension in the class. In Pennyphone, mechanism or matcha was a funim, me buy a check for any bibako, sorry, I said, Debbie, or chatro, and that the all canon and yes, a Bible. Actually, I remember one comment the man passed before you go on. He said, maybe what has caused that is that the fact you patriarchal a Janoma pen so fathers means the fathers here is in reference to Israel for one will consider them as fathers and hold view. And when he brought in that explanation, some of the people who had dissections later was like, okay, then maybe it's like that, but he really did not get into the details of it. It is details in this one. That is very good. And
so let me comment on that. Mostly, when the Israelites are saying our fathers, they are not thinking of Adam. That's not what they are thinking about. They are not thinking about Adam. They are thinking about their patriarchs. I said that Jacob Mano, the man 12 now, they looked at them as their patriarchs. Those are the ones they don't look at when they say patriarch. They are not thinking of way back Adam. And of course, if we add the moon by, that's the truth. They're not looking back as far back as Noah. The Israelites go to the extent the fathers they go is Abraham. The fathers they go with their relationship with Abraham or they attribute to Abraham. But most cases in most texts in the Bible, when a Jew is talking and he's making reference to his fathers, our fathers are. What they imply by that is the sons of Jacob, Nasifon, and Watson. But that being said, that is a side comment anyway. But that being said, the actually Patriarchal one said, two system of religion ended at the cross. So at the cross, there was Patriarchal Dispensation for the Gentile world. In the Gentile world, no be ana onanti nyankopon anim na osum nyame na ofere nyame eno nyankopon anim no. God knew the person and God was still with them. What Jew for no so no be ana otena Jew sum no obo ne bre yi no, was someone also that was knew by God. And that picture is even clearly seen in the book of Romans chapter 1 and 2, which you back passage.
Let
me show you the passage that jumps out and show us clearly that there were two ages or two dispensations that ended at the cross. Hebrews chapter 9. You go Hebrews chapter 9, verse number 26.
Hebrews chapter 9, verse
26. Yeah.
Hebrews 9, 26. Okay. Internet in the Muhammad. Can you say show us screen? So it's just a we have found the Bible here kind. Hebrews 9, verse 36. 26 or 36, sorry.
26. 26.
Okay, 26 really. Okay. A Hawking can say he then would have had to suffer often since the foundation of the world, but now, once at the end of the ages, he has appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself.
Amen. Yeah, let me point something. Amen. So let me point something out. Maybe verse the King James translation. So let me read it from King James to you, and it's an old King James. So contemporary one or the revised one will kind of deal properly with what I'm coming to talk about. But this how it reads. Says, for then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world. By world, ye mean WORLD, world. Okay. But now, once in the end of the world, had he appeared to put away sin by the sacrificing of himself. The first question that comes to our mind, which we redeem King James here, I should ask and say, did Jesus Christ really die at the end of the world? No, he did not.
No,
he did not die at the end of the world. The problem, by we're using the word world, and then say, so every text in the first world is a different translation, a different word from the second world. You see, the first world, you say, word translation, I'll say, for he must often have suffered since the foundation of the world. This world, the word world here, is different from when he said, but now at the end of the world. That word there is different from this word. Why? The first word is from the word cosmos. And cosmos has to do with order of things, the world, the physical creation, the world. So the original one said, Jesus, unamane ifri wiase ade bom fitia wiase ahebo abra nyankopon bo ade the foundation of the world as we call it as the physical creation, that world. But the next line says he appeared at the end of the world. That word there is not world as in cosmos, but it's the word ion. Ion, in fact, the best way is the word ages. And it's in plural. At the end of the ages, not at the end of the age. Yeah. The text is not saying at the end of the age. He appeared at the end of the ages to offer
himself. That's what the New King James says. So the end of the ages.
Yes, Jesus died at the end of the ages. If it was just a one line, say yes, by not the mosaic, he would have died at the end of the age of mosaic age. But Jesus died at the end of the ages, meaning that there were two or more. But we know in the Bible that there were two. There were two system of religion that were in operation at the time of the death of Jesus Christ. That is where the ideas start jumping our minds. Say, no, then we have to relook at how we have drawn our diagram by just putting a straight line there. So Jesus didn't die at the end of an age, the Mosaic age. He died at the end of the ages. It was the Mosaic age and the Patriarchal age that he died. He put those things to death. Now Mosaic age was still in operation, and Patriarchal age was still in operation, and he put to death abroad or the san your money munu sa asetena mienu no ana abrabo mienu no ana nyamesoma hodo mienu no ebawiye. So amama mu ni na ote ejanoma penso som no nhyehyeye no has to now come to Jesus Christ through the gospel of Christ. Junior ote Moses penso nhyehyeye no has to come to Jesus Christ through the gospel of Christ. So he ended the ages on the cross, and that is where we have to think through about some of these things. Another thing I think I have to draw your attention to is in the book of John. John 10. John 10, yes.
Chapter 10, verse
16. I have to check, but John 10. You remember Jesus was talking about say onene ujanhwe 4 panel. You remember that preaching
John
by Jesus. John 10. Say onone ujanhwe 4 panel. Yeah, your openi say patakuba openi dwane ever the crown we janyan ho. He spoke about all these things. But do verse 16. Verse 16.
Okay, 10 no, verse 16 they say, and other sheep I have which are not of this fold.
Or say other sheep, not other goats.
Yeah.
Sheep represent people who obey his voice. Goats, on the other hand, are people who are disobedient. Jesus said, there are other sheep that are not of this fold. Which sheep are these? The Gentile world. Yes, who come now? The Jews the Jews were in Judaism. Jew follow Jews. So it's not like only one fold. The Jews were in Judaism. But Jesus said there are other sheep that are not of this fold. What's a million muba? Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold, one shepherd. One food, one shepherd. So Jesus was telling them at the time of no kasa or kasana, most are pencils somewhere. Jesus was saying that there are other sheep. There are people who listen to the God's voice. They are not in this fold. Which Jesus say, see, so at the cross, Jesus united the Jews and the Gentiles in one body. That is in the Church of Christ. That is where Jesus united the Gentiles and the Jews in one body.
Not me say we na passage here is ya no. That's a part because say obi or type evangelism bia say this is a classic Bible text for denominations. For saying say Yankopon with different denominations. Yankopon use denominations. Say, enye baby ba akope obiara ne de but nyame gini nyina boom. So bringing this explanation out makes it clearer. Say then if it is in reference to the dispensations, then it makes a lot of in Chasier from John chapter 10. We mu pay and konkoye say or kasa about Christianity today. No I say obi nkan Jesus Christ asori no crown power no so ka hu bi. And yes, something I've heard I wanted to bring up.
Nah, the next other check, right? It's clearly Jesus was speaking at the time of Jews, some of that and Jew for who say Omona Omutine, Omona for they are the ones going, they are the ones in the safe state. And Jesus was pointing to them that there are other sheep. Omuni buying. But or 7 year oba, no munina be she buying. Now we have to have one shepherd and one fool, and that is found in the Church of Christ when the gospel is for both the Jew and the Gentile. So you Jew knew, we are mama munio as empana a come. But let me hold in here and go back and pick up some few things. You see, if God just neglected the Gentile, there are some problems also that will come up. There are people we see in the Bible who were not Jews, but they were people who also were serving God. Let me give you an example, a weird example. Balaam. Balaam now already. Yes, Balaam already.
Obey Gentile because you're kind in Numbers, I think 2022. Or kind of him say, Nyankopon and then Kasada him. He spoke to God in a dream. Yes. But not yet Israelites.
Yeah, only Israelite. Balaam was from, I mean, we don't know exact location, but possibly from the northern part of Syria. The northern part of, he's not an Israelite. He's a Gentile prophet. Amamemunia oye odifo otimi nyame kasa.
Yes.
Oni nyankopon ni won na woni nkwa na endele. Oni nyankopon dele ka chi nyankopon se de na menka nyankopon se okay. Menka esi wo mo. Then they were talking about it. Balaam is an example. Balaam was a Gentile prophet. At the time when Balaam tiase no, na Jews sumbo. So what did the say? Na Jews sum is still in oppression. But Balaam was not part of Jews, but he was a prophet for a Gentile prophet. I know
several times. Studying it is surprising. I was like, why is God still giving this guy instructions when Onka Israelites?
Onka Israelites. That is one for Balaam. Aside that, think about it. Tell me, Jonah Eko Nineveh. Not Jews, I remember a Bible class where now brother and church Bible dispensation. So it came to his mind about Jonah, and his point was that he took Jonah to the time of the patriarch. Said Jonah Tanasi a general pencil because he knew that Jonah Ekoniniwia. So Jonah Ekoniniwia, that it would have meant that Jonah went to a Gentile city and was preaching to them that they should repent. And they repented. So he has to put Jonah, Jonah, a draggy Jonah, and they call Job time. And try to look at it and say, well, Jonah might be within the time of Job. No, Jonah was not in the time of Job. Jonah was in a time where Moses several years, Moses cry. Jonah was a time where the kingdom was divided. It was in the time period of the division of the kingdom. Solomon and Jonah by a show up. And Jonah, the Juman, was to Nineveh. Nineveh was not an Israelite nation. Was a Gentile nation. Nineveh crew no ya mamemu for crew. But Jonah kohok catcher on said Nankupon be say crew. On what basis Nankupon be say crew? On my bonnet. On your bonnet. And what on what law or your bonnet and Mrabe now wafum. Sinakupon didn't care about them. It ended at Mount Sinai. Then Mrabe no more from ye. A gentleman pencil and one on my phone. Therefore, Yankupon air say crew. And they heeded to know Jonah's call. Omutie Jonah someone can say, hey, I'm Panyakupo say. And they said they prayed. Or he declare fast in the whole town. He intade ma be addressing sackcloth, praying to God that God will relent on the punishment and Nakupon them out. And truly, God did relent. Nakupon akin train Nancy as a general on say all best say because they repented at the preaching of Jonah. But Jonah did preach to a Gentile world. It was a Gentile nation. Go to the book of Amos. Amos and Human, the first 3 chapters. Amos is dealing extensively with the Gentile world. Damascus was one of them. Okasachi Damascus said Damascus was one such like general. Tyre was one of them. Gaza was one of them. Amos dealt extensively with the Gentile world. Nioma Omoya, Omon Sachel and Film one and Kupo Babachon Asobo. Obadiah was written to the Gentile world. Edom might not mean Israel for, though you might think about them as Israel, but the Edomites were not Israelites.
Brothers of Israelites.
They were brothers of Israel. But Obadiah was written to them. You remember the book of Obadiah, and Yakupon, anyone would catch them say, you will destroy you. Mumu say, how about the soa, or say, Kamuko, no man, one, or any dean, mucha mu ekudina in Quanchain, and a mu piano co. Abra, how about the source of when Mamma, one, mu call and chain brand, and who you hear, find it from the near man. God discuss all these things in the book of Obadiah and warn these people that he will destroy them, he will punish them. Indeed, God punished them. So, a king again is say, God didn't leave the Gentile world like that. 1-to-1. Just that by and large, in the Gentile world, they were not obeying God. By and large, the Gentile world, they were not obeying God.
Just maybe some mention we have now what was concerning examples, Balaam, Jonah, Amos, Obadiah, all the examples are the Mayan. Even in the, especially in the case of Balaam, Jonah, talking to the Gentile world, no. If we look at the Nyankopon Kachiroma, Nyankopon Kachiroma, so than Israelites.
They know,
but we also see proselytes, people like the Egyptians, Israel for Egypt, Akono. Some of the Egyptians possibly joined them. Later in the book of Acts chapter 2, we see people who are proselytes, original Jews are not Omabedani Jews. But in the preaching of Jonah, in Obadiah example, Amos, Mudia, Kanya, Yankopan can just say Bedani Israelites. I don't know if you share light on that.
Yeah, I understand your point. You see, it was the Gentile was not under compulsion to become a Jew, but the Gentile can serve God. Not to me, but no, they were not under compulsion. Say, "Oh, may a Jew." So Jonah didn't go there to Nineveh to tell them that, hey guys, no, they were not under compulsion to do that. They can do that. But they were not under compulsion. They say, I'm a man who need per se or yeah, or telling Yanko anymore. This or better Jew. There was not that condition. And in fact, Mama, another example, maybe you have not thought of it. You know this guy, Uriah.
Yes.
Uriah. Bible, 2 Samuel chapter 11. Bible says Uriah the Hittite. That's the description. Uriah the Hittite. Is there plenty in the Bible? Hittites were not Israelites. Hittites were Gentile world. But he was living in among the Jews. Yes, possibly maybe as a proselyte. I'm not privy to that because the Bible didn't say that. Say, or better than a proselyte. But the name said he was living among the Jews, and he was a Hittite. So Yakupon didn't towards the Gentile world and say that, well, the fact say Damascus no mean that Ubako say him. That's not the point. Say the fact say Damascus no Ubako say him. And I say the fact say Yako Nineveh no Ubako say him. And the fact say Yawo Moab assassins no Ubako say him. No. The Gentile world by and large, in most cases, no, they were pagans. No more Abusum for or Madamani Yakopa. And that is why the book of Romans chapter 1 it tells us that Otini be anyhow. Or may I mean their lifestyle, their Romans chapter 1, let me tell you, say these Gentiles were bad. Abraba no mubo omuni nyame de, and so am person be kra nyame wo nim bi mu. And am so one person be kra nyankopon wo nim bi. Nyankopon yi won ma efi ni akono ni nyoma obo ho adapa na de ade, and all sort of things. Paul described the Gentile world way to show to us that even in the Gentile system, that system of religion, if we Adam a pensua, by a memu for no moon, and to me, I'm found quite amrelipa. And to me, I'm found quite amrelipa. You jump to Romans chapter 2. Paul spent time telling us about the Jewish world. Even most are pensua, and most they buy and I don't know. I'm fat and quite amrelipa in a sense that still now they were still Jew for no be at one bonny, no, your bonny. And Paul was clear in Romans 2 we shall see verse 1. Oh, wow, nipa. Oh, say, we ye bonnet. We are my memu for some year the boy for. Also, ye bonini bia. Okay, say, Mamma, you yadi. So, foam, I saw them on your man. Okay, say, your mind. That's so what your man corner now. So, you have no excuse. You have no excuse before God because you are still living the same lifestyle that the Gentile world was living. And that is why in chapter 3, he closes that idea by telling us that both Jews and Gentiles before the cross were sinful. Jew fool, I'm a mamu fool. Yes, Christ, am my before the cross, Jew fool, I'm a mamu fool. It in a sense, it doesn't even mean that literally everybody in that world, every single individual in that world was sinful. That's not the meaning. That's not the meaning at all. Because one, Zachariah, and the Bible says, most some because Zachariah only for Zachariah. John the Baptist, the papa.
John mobile back after exile
no. John the Baptist papa.
Okay.
John the Baptist
okay,
papa.
Yes.
Zachariah. Not Zachariah wasn't that bad. You see the point. See, but by and large, so if Jew for more, most of them were off. Most of them were off. And that is Paul's point in the book of Romans, chapter 1 and chapter 2 and chapter 3. That by and large, before the cross, nipa kwanya na nyankopon hyehyɛ ode ma nipa ntimi amfa so antene o nyankopon nim because nipa na nkasa ye de ono apɛ onhwɛ nyankopon onkra nyame wɔ nim biemu, and that is the idea Paul atwam. So we shouldn't look at the Gentile world as
conclude the thought now we're holding now. Just to bring this up, maybe you highlight on it. Noah was also described as a righteous man.
Yes.
But my question to add to this is Abraham. In Genesis 12, we are introduced to Abraham in chapter 11 ending. Yahune Papa, Nebuchadnezzar 4 the thought is ending in Genesis chapter 11. We are introduced to Abraham, and the Bible tells us God speaks to Abraham. My question then is, if Abraham was introduced to us and for me studying this, then it means people living before the Israelites knew who the true God is.
Yeah.
Knew what to do to please this true God. Even though we don't have enough information to maybe make that conclusion. We see Abraham, how could he have known that is the true God?
Yes.
So I think this is maybe I don't know your comment on it as to how, if God spoke to Abraham and later we have the Israelite, that means possibly there were other people
I just say what you say. The fact that the book of Acts and Luke focuses on Paul at the latter part in the midsection, chapter 13. Focus on Paul and the Juma and then confer upon your man. What you might be that the other apostles were lazy. They were lazy. It was the Holy Spirit trying to show you what He wants you to see. That's not the picture that we shouldn't get the picture that the other apostles that I am moving from like someone like Matthias. You see, Matthias showed up in the book of Acts chapter 1, verse number 11. When the name was mentioned that was added to the apostles. That is it. That is it in Matthias. You read through the entire book of Acts, you don't come across Matthias' name. You read through the epistles, you don't come across Matthias' name. So, but we reading now shouldn't think that Matthias was some sort of lazy guy, or maybe even he fell from Christianity or something. No, we shouldn't think like that. The point is that the same thing said. The fact said Nyankopon any story no, and I say all about how the Pankwan. The fact when he singled out the Israelites and he was discussing extensively from the book of Exodus or discuss extensively about Israel former memory, didn't mean that the Gentile world, there was nobody who was doing something right.
Yeah.
It's just a storyline. You see, the Bible from Genesis to Revelation tell us how God saved man. And so tell your Bible from chapter 1 of Genesis. Or shall I say, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. Then if you walk on, he's focused on the earth because earth is here. It doesn't mean that Jupiter was not created by God.
Planets are coming here.
Yes, it doesn't mean that. It means that Nyankopon nipa obeji won kwa ne hia no ana wo ka ho asem kire. So he focuses on the earth, and focusing on earth no kakra duru ba bi he focus on man. Chapter 3 the focus is now on man. Uko nim kakra from chapter 3 na kono then you see that God is dealing with specific people. He narrows it down to some particular line. Now, okay, just to show us how Jesus Christ actually came. But it doesn't tell us the entire picture. It doesn't give us every detail. You see, it doesn't give us every detail of everybody's life. Set in a brabo, they're not set in a war year, they're not way year, they're not. No, it doesn't give us every detail. He gives us what is important, a snapshot of what is important to link us to Christ coming and the salvation that came through Jesus Christ. So the whole entire story is like that. So, Mama Jenny said, well, you can Jew for Muntino. I'm a member from there. They were west of, and there was none. Be anyone no papa. No, that's not the picture. There were people who were being spoken to by Nyankopon ni won kasa. So nipa ne ye and Balaam is an example. Say Balaam though usia yini ya Bible depicts as obi a oyesika ni brefo, but no Nyankopon di for. He was a seer. And God dealt with Nyankopon ni kasa there. Men kesi Nyankopon ni kasa say men kesi Jew for no.
Israelites.
And in fact, on one ko siki Nyankopon or call Nyankopon say Nyankopon ko kasa. How do you know that there is a God that he has to talk to? You see the point. How do you know in the first place that there is a God I have to communicate? How do you know that? A child say God didn't leave the Gentile world like that. And say Jew and then before no several years later after Moses said who come then before no Jonah preaching almost such that agreeing say well Nyankopon ever say cool it almost such no almost such that agreeing no. It's telling that they knew God. In the Roman form and it's back on clear that the Gentile world in Nyame. Then so one person or they did not retain God in their knowledge. And it's clear the same kind of picture and so there are thousands and thousands of people acting Nyame who asem. But one person or Nyame they don't want to entertain God in their knowledge. They don't want to entertain God in their thought. They want to factor God in the picture. And that is where the problem is coming from. So a clear picture on that will help us. Yeah.
Okay. Sir,
yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. Just a little bit on Romans, this, as you're explaining, especially the case of Balaam and others, it brought my mind to a recent video trending on social media, especially on TikTok. Lady, say I Bible no read also about Philippi, no about Thessalonica, no about Ephesus. It is Old Testament. Majority of the text from the Old Testament about Jews, Ghana 4 year when. And Africa 4 year in India, and that's just say Nyankopon and on your sure say the Bible is even for Africans. But what you are saying draws the whole picture clearly. Say God, even though you're Africa, you're Asia, remember you say God just left everybody and he was just only Israel, Israel for them. But whoever in any of these places Osuro Nyankopon, like we read from Acts chapter 10. Nyankopon partial. So I think that even for those living in Africa before Christianity, they are still under the diagram you showed us.
Yeah,
Patriarchal.
Patriarchal dispensation.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
to
And
comment on
that
that,
will make judgment fair.
yes, and to comment on that, you see, so Romans chapter 9, Romans 9 and Romans 9, Romans 10, and Romans 11. Paul, I actually Jew for not doing to say, you see, Jew for no imagine say, I say, Yankopon, heaven, Yankopon owe them heaven. God don't owe anybody heaven. So, man, the tina, Yankopon be you won't feel. Obey why won't free and quite general. And that was Paul's point. But and when you study that text closely, the Jews had a problem. They asked, their question was that, why will God not save us? And Paul answered it that because of the fact that God selected you for say Nyankopon yi wo say agenkwa mfa wo mumra no does not imply that you are automatically saved. It doesn't mean that. It means that Nyankopon the way you adwuma. The adwuma bi o pese agenkwa na mba no or the way you adwuma. And he used the Gentile word as well. He used Cyrus the adwuma. You remember? Or the Cyrus the adwuma. And that is how the picture should look like. Oh, nipa adwuma say the first say Nyankopon yi su obi di ni adwuma na Nyankopon de Israel for nama Israel for no asem. They don't depict the fact that Israel for no kwan na won kwan. Therefore, be only Israel ni Nyankopon oni nkwan Nyankopon ni. Oye de ya onye ye ontimi nyankwa. Dabi. So nipa tinante Nyankopon ni yi a obo ne bre yi na osore Nyankopon ejanoma pen so se ne Nyankopon de ma wo mu no a. Na we Nyankopon echi akwan a onante Nyankopon ni Nyankopon je no. So we are not supposed to be worried about it. It's like Elijah worrying about it. Nyankopon yakuma di fo ni nyina na menkwa na aka. That's not a Nyankopon, that's not the picture. I have thousands of prophets and more for bebre wo wo ni mom. The fact that one who see ekunkum mom a wo ni mom a wonim so mo ye di fo a yekunkum mom no aka wo no kono. Doesn't mean say me Nyankopon me ni di fo. I have prophets more bebre wo. So don't worry yourself about it. And that is the picture. Say, Nyankopon selected Israel for a purpose. Say, Jesus has to come through a family. He can't come through all families. Sometimes we want to make it a case that Jews are not African. Yes, not white. Yes, not it's of no consequence. Say, yes, not a British crown. The point is that he has to come from a country. Say yes or not he has to come from a country. So he has to come from a nation. He has to come from a family. And that nation, that family was selected by God. Say the bear yes to be free or muaba. You see the point? But selection or selective woman say yes to be free or muaba. It doesn't mean that by default to be a nyankwa. See Romans 11 or Paul kind. So in like manner, and I saw all Israel shall be saved. But Usian de Kakre Roman for woman or any Galati for woman or senior Israel for any Israel for. And yet Israel for any Binyankwa. The point is that Israel for any do a while. No one and teach and coupon in Bokwan Papa. So certainly they can be saved. So Yen free again Musa said, as if said the Gentile world were completely were blackened into oblivion. Yankupon Chomudia free in Kwahumani. I say Jesus Christ Moses show up on Mount Sinai. That would have meant so many things. You walk or Damascus by default.
Waira. That has a lot of contradicting so many passages in scriptures.
It looks down. That is a Calvinistic God. That's Calvin's God. It's not the God of the Bible. Say you walk Iraka. It means Waira. Some people think that say only we share the course where a country who muntina yes sir. It means that you Iran, but like you ask for meaning we say yes, you Iran will have been Muslims. Of course, there's a high possibility that we have been Muslims because the nation, by and large, support Islamic religion and stuff like that. But it doesn't prelude the fact that Nyankopon Emma will be an open chance. Nyankopon ban and I have to decide for myself I also have to decide where I have to blame by reading and by researching. So be a mechanic and quadia. Shishenzo or 7 Zumi. And Uncle Papa promises to be really a woman. So that is something I'm normal say yes and so. The Gentile or
Great
the
explanation.
Jews
Okay.
were all saved. They are all going to be saved under the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that ended at the cross. Yeah, same year so and I used to preach to amamamu akwan na or the first person or the banya kopon cheni fi ho. And yi Jew for akwan or person nam so the banya kopon cheni fi ho. No de na sempa ne si wo se. Bibiara o yesiti ma Yesu Kristo asempa no. Ebetimi anya nkwa. So we Jew ni o. So ya amamamu ni o. O nkwa onya nkwa yi. That is why Romans 1 verse number 16 say many who Yesu Kristo asempa no. If say Nyankopon tumi ai de kon kwaje ma wona wo gidie nyina Judah for kan ene hela for so now to us verse 17 was it emu ana wo Nyankopon tren bi say ne watchre say the eternal free gidie mu benyankwa. So it is in the gospel of Jesus Christ that God justifies a man. Now ene Nyankopon bebu nipa be mo a Yesu Kristo asempa no say wo tena ejanema penso na wo pese wo de bo bra entimi nyankwa. Otina Musa pension is ya intimate nkwa. If you say Yesu Kristo ani nyina ba wiye e wa senwe. How do we know that? Hebrews 9 verse number 26 say Jesus suffered at the cross at the end of the ages, plural, not singular, and that is important. So as we can bring it up.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a pa addition adahu. And just to highlight on the Bible passages, you see about Acts chapter 10, verse 34 and 35. About John chapter 10, verse 16. So about Hebrews chapter 9, verse 26. These are the key passages that were mentioned. And after Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Chapter 2, verse 14. And I about Jonah, Yakabala Mwasem say, Numbers chapter 22, Numbers chapter 23. Which the one day or Balak. Very interesting stories. I'll be to me. So Jonah Sem, Yabo Amos, Yabo Obadiah, and I feel Uriah the Hittite. This and Abraham and so Mwasem Kakra. So this was a conversation on Bible dispensation explained. Mijidi say, what's your name be? Matro media waha notes be menso mijidi say also say wona wo try why are there say one try so na be call back na akusua say your Bible answers sabe pa cho e adesua e be see questions am ni hu the Bible no e ka kire enti say bia na the question bi aba e bia wo adwenche bi bia wo no wo the to comment section ma we look at it, and in the next video no you be react to all of them. Na aboama nti say to me ayeduma yeda se pa say o kan ho enne e wo sa adusua we say mu midin e de there down so na mene preacher wo committee 8 and 9 Church of Christ Jonathan Mensah Bonsu na edi enkomo we a Bible answers confirm say we share next week same time on Wednesday about 6 o'clock boss say correct time no or say 5:30 remember me say time ni bi I remember the 5:30 yeah on Wednesday na yaba live na edin komo onyankopon onsha not forgetting quickly our website charity website no mame fan to screen so na ko sisi ya www.charitytv.com ko sisi ya na ko update ayaye was our website so we articles we videos we a lot of lessons and so no onyankopon onka ye nyina ho na onhwae kopim se bi hia biom no yakobia